The dog appeared on the third morning of frost, standing square in the road like a living barricade. No growl. No bark. Just a German shepherd with amber eyes and a scar down one ear, planted in the path of a yellow school bus full of half-asleep children. The driver leaned on the horn. The dog didn't flinch. It only stared, past the windshield, past the driver, toward the bend in the road where the trees thickened and the fog never seemed to lift. That was when the driver felt it, the certainty that this wasn't defiance. It was warning. If you find yourself pulled into this story, the quiet moments as much as the loud ones, staying with it helps more than you might think. The bus route out of Gray Hollow wasn't complicated. 32 miles of back roads, one covered bridge, 2 farms that still burned coal in winter, and a stretch of county asphalt that dipped so sharply it disappeared every morning into fog like a bad memory the land refused to keep. Evan Mercer had driven it for 9 years. He knew which mailboxes leaned, which dogs chased tires, which houses had lights on before dawn and which never did. He knew the sound of the engine when the temperature dropped below freezing, the exact pressure needed on the brakes at Miller's Curve, the smell of wet leaves when the thaw came early. What he didn't know, what he would swear later he couldn't have known, was why the road stopped him that morning. The dog stood where the pavement narrowed, just past the stand of white pines that marked the old quarry turnoff. Full grown. Thick coat, sable and black, chest broad, posture straight as a soldier's. Evan eased off the accelerator, expecting it to bolt. It didn't. "Come on," Evan muttered, tapping the horn once. The sound cracked through the quiet. Somewhere in the bus, a child laughed. The dog held its ground. Evan slowed to a stop 10 feet away. The headlights washed over the animal, catching the glint in its eyes. Not wild. Not panicked. Focused. "Mr. Mercer," a voice called from behind him. Lily Chen, 3rd grade, always awake too early. "Is it a police dog?" "Doesn't look like it," Evan said. He shifted in his seat, heart ticking faster than it should. There was something about the way the dog stood, not braced to attack, not ready to run. Waiting. Evan opened the door. Cold rushed in, sharp as needles. "Hey," he called, keeping his voice calm. "You're gonna get yourself hurt standing there." The dog's ears flicked. It took 1 step forward. Evan froze. Then the dog turned its head, not toward Evan, but toward the woods on the left. Dense trees, dark even in daylight. It looked back at Evan, then at the trees again. A ripple of unease slid under Evan's ribs. "Mr. Mercer." Lily again, softer now. "Why is it looking like that?" Evan didn't answer. He stepped down onto the road, boots crunching on frost. The dog watched him, muscles coiled but not aggressive. When Evan took another step, the dog moved too, sidestepping, deliberately blocking the bus's path again. "Okay," Evan said quietly. "Okay. I get it." He didn't, really. But something in his chest recognized the shape of the moment. He backed up, climbed into the bus, and killed the engine. The children murmured. Phones came out. Someone started filming. "Everyone stay seated," Evan said. His voice sounded steadier than he felt. "I'm going to call this in." The radio crackled. Dispatch sounded irritated. Animal control was understaffed. Sheriff was an hour out. No reports of a loose dog matching that description. "Can you go around?" the dispatcher asked. Evan looked at the road. No shoulder. Ditch on one side, trees on the other. "No," he said. "I can't." The dog sat down. As if that settled it. By the time animal control arrived 40 minutes later, the dog was gone. Just vanished into the trees, leaving behind a bus full of late children and a driver who couldn't shake the feeling that he'd been tested and found lacking. The next morning, the dog was back. Same place. Same posture. Same eyes. This time, Evan didn't honk. He stopped the bus 20 feet back and sat there, hands on the wheel, breath fogging the windshield. The kids leaned forward, whispering. "Is it the same dog?" someone asked. "Yes," Evan said. "How does it know?" another voice said. "About the bus." Evan had no answer. He opened the door again, stepped out, and crouched slightly, not threatening, not submissive. "Hey," he said. "It's me." The dog stood, took a step closer. Evan's heart hammered, but he didn't move. "Do you belong to someone?" Evan asked, feeling foolish. "You lost." The dog's tail twitched once. Then it turned and walked, slow, deliberate, toward the woods. Evan straightened. The dog stopped at the tree line and looked back. It waited. "Mr. Mercer," Lily whispered. "I think it wants you to follow it." Evan swallowed. Every rule he knew pressed against the idea. Bus protocol. Safety. Common sense. But so did something else. A pressure behind his eyes. The weight of a road he'd driven too many times without really seeing. "I'm not leaving the bus," he said, more to himself than to anyone else. "I can't." The dog stared at him for a long moment. Then it stepped back onto the road and lay down across it, blocking the path completely. A murmur rippled through the bus. Fear now. Excitement. Phones recording again. Evan climbed back in and keyed the radio. "Dispatch," he said. "It's back. Same dog. And it's not moving. Static." Then, "Mr. Mercer, you need to proceed if you can." "I can't," Evan said again. "I won't." Silence on the line. Minutes passed. The dog didn't move. Finally, Evan made a decision he would replay for the rest of his life. He shut off the bus, set the brake, and stepped into the woods. The forest swallowed sound. The crunch of frost under his boots felt too loud, like he was announcing himself to something that didn't want to be found. The dog moved ahead of him, never more than 10 yards away, glancing back often to be sure Evan followed. "What are you doing?" Evan muttered. "This is insane." They moved downhill. The air grew colder, damper. The smell changed, metallic, faintly sweet. Then Evan saw it. A backpack lay half-hidden under leaves. Pink straps. A cartoon rabbit on the side, mud-streaked but unmistakable. Evan stopped so abruptly the dog nearly collided with him. "No," Evan whispered. The backpack was small, child-sized. His radio crackled at his hip, suddenly loud. He didn't answer it. He stepped closer, heart in his throat, and nudged the bag with his boot. It was heavy. Too heavy. The dog sat beside it, perfectly still. Evan's hands shook as he knelt and unzipped the bag. Inside were books, a lunchbox, a knit hat, and beneath them, Evan retched, turning away just in time. The scream tore out of him before he could stop it. The investigation shut down the road for 2 weeks. They said the child had wandered off. They said exposure. They said no foul play suspected. Evan listened to all of it with a numbness that felt like frostbite. He gave his statement 3 times. He answered questions he hadn't known how to ask himself. The dog was never found. Until the bus route resumed. On the first morning back, Evan drove slower than ever. His hands hurt from gripping the wheel. The kids were quieter now. Older somehow. At the tree line, the dog stepped out. Same eyes. Same scar. Evan stopped. The dog did not block the road this time. It stood to the side, watching. Evan met its gaze, understanding blooming too late and too sharp in his chest. "You tried to tell me," he whispered. The dog turned and walked back into the trees. And this time, Evan let it go. The dog didn't come the next morning. Evan told himself it was a relief. That it meant whatever balance had been disturbed was settling back into place. He drove the route with a careful normalcy, stopping where he always had, waving where he always waved, answering the same questions from the same kids. But when the bus reached the bend in the road, the narrow stretch where the trees leaned in and the fog liked to linger, his foot hovered over the brake. Nothing blocked the way. The bus rolled through. Evan felt like he was doing something wrong. Gray Hollow processed tragedy the way it did everything else, quietly, in pieces, behind closed doors. A candlelight vigil bloomed on the courthouse steps for one evening and then disappeared. The child's name was spoken with care, then less often, then only in the past tense. The school counselor stayed late for 2 weeks. Parents hugged longer at drop-off. The road reopened. Life continued, uneven but determined. Evan, meanwhile, began to notice things. It started with the mailbox at the old quarry turnoff. He had driven past it for years without a second glance, A rusted metal box, red once, now faded to a dull scab. On the third day after the road reopened, Evan saw the dent on its side, low and wide, like something had struck it hard and then slid away. The next morning, he noticed tire tracks off the shoulder near the trees. Faint, half erased by frost and time, but unmistakable once seen. They angled toward the woods, not away from them. He told himself the sheriff's department would have noticed. That he wasn't an investigator. That his job was to drive the bus. Still, when he got home that afternoon, he didn't turn on the television. He sat at the kitchen table and stared at the grain of the wood until dusk settled in. That night, he dreamed of Amber Eyes watching him from the dark. The dog returned on Friday. Not in the road. Not blocking the bus. It stood on the shoulder, half hidden by brush, watching as Evan approached. The children noticed it too, heads craning, whispers fluttering. "Is that him?" Lily asked. "Yes," Evan said. "Why isn't he stopping us?" Evan slowed the bus to a crawl. The dog stepped forward once, then stopped. It turned its head toward the trees, then back to Evan. An invitation. Evan's pulse kicked up. He eased the bus to a stop, set the brake, and turned to the children. "Stay seated," he said. "I'll be right back." A chorus of protests followed him down the steps, but he ignored them. The dog waited, patient as ever, then turned and moved into the woods. Evan followed. This time, the forest felt different. Less hostile. As if it recognized him. The ground sloped gently, the air damp and cold. The smell was there again, metallic, faintly sweet, but fainter now, like an echo. They walked for several minutes before the dog stopped. It stood beside a tree Evan hadn't noticed before. A big oak, scarred by old carvings. Initials, dates, a heart with a crack down the middle. And lower, near the base, a fresh gouge in the bark. Long jagged. The dog sat and looked at Evan. "What?" Evan whispered. He crouched, examining the mark. It looked like it had been made by metal. Something dragged. Something heavy. Evan's stomach tightened. "You showed them the bag," he said slowly. "Now you're showing me this." The dog's ears flicked. "Why?" The dog stood and moved on. They found more as they went deeper. A scrap of fabric caught on a thorn. A shoe print in the mud that didn't belong to a child. Another set of tire tracks, older, pressed deep into the earth and then cut off abruptly, as if the driver had backed out in a hurry. Evan's mind raced. He thought of the sheriff's calm voice. No foul play suspected. He thought of the way the investigation had ended so quickly, the road reopened, the town eager to move on. The dog stopped near a clearing where the trees thinned and the ground dipped into a shallow ravine. At the bottom, half buried in leaves, was something metal. A door handle. Evan stared at it, breath shallow. He reached down and brushed away leaves with trembling fingers. The handle was attached to a panel of dented steel, paint scratched and flaking. A vehicle door. Evan stumbled back. "No," he whispered. "No, no, no." The dog barked once. Sharp. Urgent. Evan pulled out his phone with numb hands and dialed the sheriff's department. When the dispatcher answered, Evan didn't bother with preamble. "There's more," he said. "You missed something." They came faster this time. Deputies. Crime scene tape. Flashing lights cutting through the trees like a wound reopening. Evan stood at the edge of the clearing, arms wrapped around himself, while officers combed the area. The dog vanished before anyone else arrived. They found the rest of the vehicle buried farther down the ravine. An old pickup, stripped of plates, partially dismantled. Inside were stains that no amount of careful language could soften. The sheriff didn't meet Evan's eyes when he gave the update. "Looks like we may need to revisit our earlier conclusion," he said. "Why wasn't this found before?" Evan asked. The sheriff's jaw tightened. "We searched." "Not enough," Evan said. He surprised himself with the force of it. The sheriff studied him for a long moment. "You've been spending time out here," he said. "Not a question." Evan nodded. "With the dog?" "Yes." The sheriff sighed. "You need to be careful, Evan. People are already talking." "About what?" About why a bus driver is doing our job for us. Evan thought of the dog's eyes, steady and unblinking. Someone has to, he said. The talking grew louder anyway. At the diner, voices lowered when Evan walked in. A man at the counter muttered something about stirring things up. A woman he'd known for years wouldn't meet his gaze. Only Ruth Calder spoke to him like nothing had changed. Ruth owned the gas station at the edge of town, the one place open before dawn. She'd lived in Grey Hollow longer than anyone could remember, her spine bent but her eyes sharp. "You look like hell," she said, sliding him a coffee without asking. "Feel worse," Evan said. She studied him. "That dog again?" "Yes." Ruth nodded slowly. "Figures." "You know something," Evan said. Ruth snorted. "Everyone knows something in this town. Difference is whether they admit it." Evan waited. "That road," she said finally. "It's taken more than it's given." "What do you mean?" Ruth's gaze drifted to the window. "Years back, before you started driving, there was an accident out there. Officially, anyway. Unofficially," she shook her head. "A man lost his boy. Swore the town helped cover it up." "Who?" Evan asked. Ruth hesitated. "Sheriff at the time," she said. "His brother." Evan's blood went cold. "The dog?" he asked quietly. Ruth's mouth tightened. "That man had a shepherd," she said. "Smartest animal I ever saw. Used to sit by the road like it was guarding something." Evan pushed back from the counter. "What happened to the boy?" Ruth met his eyes. "Depends who you ask." That night, Evan couldn't sleep. He sat on his porch, listening to the woods breathe, the darkness pressing in from all sides. When he finally stood to go inside, a shape detached itself from the shadows at the edge of his yard. The dog. It approached slowly, cautious but determined. Evan's chest tightened. He crouched, holding out a hand. "Hey!" he whispered. The dog sniffed his fingers, then pressed its head into his palm. "Warm. Solid. Real." "You belong to him," Evan said. "The sheriff's brother." The dog pulled back and looked at him. "You've been waiting," Evan said, "for someone to listen." The dog turned and walked toward the woods, stopping once to look back. Evan followed. They reached the old quarry road, a place long abandoned, choked with weeds and memory. At the far end stood a house Evan had never visited but everyone knew. The former sheriff lived there still. The dog stopped at the tree line, hackles raised. Evan's heart pounded. "You want me to go there?" The dog did not move. Evan understood then, not just what the dog knew, but what it was asking. "Okay," he whispered. "I will." Behind the darkened windows of the house, a light flicked on. The former sheriff's house had been built to overlook the quarry road, a long, low structure with a porch that sagged like a tired spine. It had once been white. Now it was the color of old bone, paint peeled away by years of weather and neglect. One porch light burned, harsh and yellow, cutting a narrow cone through the dark. Evan stopped at the edge of the trees. The dog did not come any farther. Its body was rigid now, tension drawn tight beneath its fur. This wasn't fear. It was restraint. "You're not coming," Evan said softly. The dog's eyes stayed on the house. "You can't," Evan whispered. "Or you won't." The dog sat. It had brought him as far as it could. Evan took a breath and stepped out of the trees alone. The porch boards creaked under his weight. The sound felt indecent in the quiet. He knocked once, then twice. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the door opened a fraction. The man who looked out at him had been a presence in Grey Hollow for most of Evan's life, tall once, broad-shouldered, authoritative. Now age had folded him inward. His hair was thin and white, his face slack in places where discipline had once held it tight. "Yes," the man said. His voice was steady. Too steady. "Mr. Hale," Evan said. "I need to talk to you." Hale's eyes flicked past Evan, toward the trees. A calculation passed over his face. Quick, practiced. "It's late," Hale said. "You should go home." "I found the truck," Evan said. Silence stretched. Then Hale opened the door wider. "Come in," he said. The house smelled like dust and old paper. Awards lined one wall, plaques, commendations, photographs of Hale shaking hands with men in suits. In every photo, he was smiling. They sat at the kitchen table. Hale poured 2 glasses of water with hands that didn't shake. "You've caused quite a stir," Hale said mildly. "People are upset." "About the truth?" Evan asked. Hale's mouth tightened. "About wounds being reopened." "Some wounds don't close," Evan said. Hale studied him. "You think you know what happened?" "I think you helped bury it," Evan said. "Your brother's boy didn't wander off. He was taken. And when the truth came too close, you made it go away." Hale leaned back, exhaling slowly. "Careful," he said. "Those are serious accusations." "The dog," Evan said. "It was his. Your brother's. It's been guarding that road for years." Hale's eyes flickered despite himself. Evan pressed on. "You called it an accident back then. Closed the case fast. Same pattern now. But the land remembers. And so does the dog." For a long moment, Hale said nothing. Then he laughed. Quietly. Without humor. "You think I did this for him?" Hale said. "For my brother." "Didn't you?" Hale shook his head. "I did it for this town." The words landed heavier than any confession. "You don't understand," Hale continued. "Gray Hollow was dying even then. Bad press would have finished it. No businesses. No families moving in. A child taken by someone local? People would have turned on each other. So yes, I kept things quiet." "By letting a killer walk free," Evan said. Hale's gaze hardened. "By keeping order." Evan stood. His legs felt unsteady. "I'm going to the sheriff," he said. Hale didn't rise. "Already did," he said. Evan froze. "What?" "Called him as soon as I saw you coming up the drive," Hale said. "Told him you've been trespassing, interfering with an active investigation. That you're not well." Betrayal burned sharp and sudden. "You lied," Evan said. Hale shrugged. "I protected this town for 40 years. I won't stop now." Outside, a low sound carried through the open window. A growl. Hale's eyes snapped toward it. The deputies arrived quickly. Too quickly. Evan was escorted out, hands not cuffed but firmly held. He caught a glimpse of the dog at the tree line, body low, eyes bright with something like fury. "I'm sorry," Evan whispered, though he wasn't sure to whom. The dog did not look away. The arrest didn't stick. By morning, evidence had surfaced, quietly, inexplicably. Old files re-examined. Anonymous tips. A second vehicle connected to the ravine. A name whispered, then spoken aloud. The killer hadn't been a stranger. It had been Hale's brother. A man protected not just by family, but by silence. When the truth finally broke into daylight, it didn't roar. It seeped. People reeled, then turned inward. The former sheriff was taken into custody without protest. He looked smaller in the back of the cruiser, diminished by the weight he could no longer carry. Evan watched from the courthouse steps. The dog sat beside him. No one else seemed to notice it. The road reopened a final time. On the first morning back, Evan drove the route with a strange calm. The fog lifted earlier than usual. Sunlight threaded through the trees, touching places it never had before. At the bend in the road, Evan slowed. The dog stood there, as it always had. Evan stopped the bus. The dog stepped aside. They looked at each other, man and animal bound by a truth neither had sought but both had carried. "Thank you," Evan said. The dog's tail moved once. Then it turned and walked into the woods, unhurried now, its work finished. Years later, people would still talk about the dog that stopped a school bus. Some said it was trained. Others said it was luck. A few said it was something else entirely. Evan never argued. He drove the road until retirement, seeing it clearly at last, not as a path to be endured, but as a witness. Some mornings, when the fog was just right, he thought he saw a familiar shape at the tree line. Watching. Making sure nothing stayed buried again.